the winning choice for the recent poll that I did for this upcoming art challenge that I want to take on? Well, it's the 100 days painting birds. And I kind of knew that was what it was going to be, because that's what I've been wanting to do, is paint and focus a lot more on birds. If you've been with this channel, you know that birds are one of my favorite subjects. So, in today's video, I'm going to share with you the first few tidbits and tricks of painting birds, some inspirational quotes from some of my favorite bird ornithologists like David Sibley and the Muir's laws, who are both artists and ornithologists, people who study birds. And that's sort of how I got into watercolor painting. I first started birding and trying to paint birds. So that's why that subject is one of my favorites. But I'm going to tell you what art supplies I want to use in this 100 days challenge. And I think I'm going to do it for 100 days, or at least that's going to be what I'm going to try to do at the start, is post a short on what bird I'm doing for the day, and we'll just take it by ear from there. If you're new to this channel, let me introduce you and welcome you to Countryboardwalk Studios. I'm CB Mac, a multimedia artist who enjoys making my own art supplies for plein air painting, urban sketching, or to use inside my studio. So, let's go check out what kind of art supplies I'm going to be taking and using during this 100 Days Bird Challenge, and some quick tips on how you can paint along with me or create your art with me on these birds every day, and what all I want to accomplish in this next 100 Days Challenge. So, boardwalkers, with birds being my 100 paintings challenge subject, how do I decide what supplies I'm going to be using or take? I mean, I can paint birds indoors or outdoors and that. And we did decide this last time when I reviewed this Flunbrato Sketchbook that was what I was going to use for sure as my sketchbook. And it's a 3x5, 3.5 inches by 5.1 inches, and it has the 80 sheets. But with my challenge being 100 birds, I've decided that I could divide this sketchbook in half into 2 individual paintings and do a 2.5 inch by 3.5 inch size painting, which happens to be the same size as those artist trading cards that they've been so popular with recently. They're making a comeback with. But how else do I decide what kinds of mediums and supplies to take? I did this 3-minute sketching. I timed myself for 3 minutes. I want to do something where I can post daily, like a short, which the limit for the shorts is 3 minutes. And as you can see, in 3 minutes, this is what I was able to sketch. Now, I want you to think about what kind of bird you think this bird could be, because that right there does not show you very much. And with me being a birder first, before I was an artist, I can tell you, I can think of 10 different birds that this bird sketch could be. Now, if you'd like to follow along with me in this birding challenge, and you don't have a Flunbrato sketchbook and don't want to paint that small or sketch that small, you can go ahead and use a full sheet of paper or a bigger sketchbook. You can square you off a space of 2.5 inches to 3.5 inches to follow along with me on that. But I'm going to try and keep my daily challenges at a reasonable time for painting and sketching. With this one being 3 minutes, I figure if I can keep the time limit anywhere from 3 minutes to probably no more than 30 minutes top, depending on which medium I add. If I'm doing colored pencils, pastel pencils, watercolor, or gouache, that will help decide my supplies. But if you recall, I did do a review on the Law's Guide to Drawing Birds, and it's written and illustrated by one of my favorite artists and birders, John Muir Laws, and the foreword was done by a second favorite birder and artist, David Allen Sibley. And I'll link the video for the book and for the Flunbrato in the description down below. But how am I going to decide what art supplies I want to take with this? I kind of have looked through this book, and some of the art supplies that he suggests using in here, in his materials and techniques section, were some of the supplies I'm thinking of using. He's got the Prismacolor non-erase blue pencils. He's got mechanical pencils, water-soluble pencils, of which I have also, regular colored pencils, white pencils, water-soluble tip pens, brush pens, the Pentel or gel pens, the white gel pens, using soft kneaded erasers or white vinyl erasers like this pencil form, and then using blending tools. He also suggests maybe using watercolors with a Pentel Aqua water brush, and I do have that kind of paintbrush. There's the section on colored pencils with the embossing tool and a blender, and I have both of those things that I could use also. And then on his watercolor choices, if you do use watercolor choices, he's got the single pigments that he uses, and he uses mostly Daniel Smith or Winsor & Newton. And I've gone through and starred and put the versions that I have of my single pigments, and I'm going to be using, probably, if I use my watercolors, it's going to be my Etchr small palette. with my MaimeriBlu set of colors that actually corresponds with a lot of these colors that he's got listed, because he's got them listed by pigment numbers. And so I've checked my pigment numbers earlier. So that's one thing that I might take. But how do you go about deciding that? I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but I don't know how to draw birds. And 3 minutes is going to be way too quick for me to try and draw and learn how to draw a bird. And I'm going to try within this challenge to show you just how easy it is to learn how to draw birds. Let's see in here what my two favorite bird artists, John Muir Laws and David Allen Sibley, have to say inspirationally about doing challenges and drawing and learning how to do birds. In the foreword here, David Allen Sibley says, and I'm just going to read some of the section that I took from that. The simple act of trying to draw something can change the way you look at the world. Drawing is often misunderstood. Non-artists tend to focus on the end result and think that the primary purpose of drawing is to produce pretty pictures. For one thing, this book points out that that's a stress-inducing way to think about practicing of drawing, since by that measure, most of your drawings will be failures. More importantly, it misses the deeper and longer-lasting rewards of drawing, the knowledge and understanding that comes from the process. So, that was David Allen Sibley. What does the author of this book, John Muir Laws, thinks? He thinks drawing birds is a joy, and that the greatest reward is not the product or actual drawing, but is the process itself. We assume, and I'm going to be reading a little bits out of here and just comprise some inspiration. We assume that if we can see, we know how to observe. But true observation is a skill that we must practice and learn. The best learning does not come from books. It comes from your own experience. Drawing reinforces the sort of Gestalt observations that advanced birders use to identify birds from fleeting glimpses in poor light. So he says, give yourself permission to draw. You can do this. Let it become a joyful obsession. Let it become a joyful obsession. Drawing's a skill that you develop by practice. If you draw regularly, then you'll be able to draw, not the other way around. Every drawing is a practice for the next one. The single most important thing you can do to improve your art is to draw more often. Your improvement never ends. Developing any new skill requires practice. The most important thing is to push yourself to draw on a regular basis. Consider drawing a bird a day. Then he says, keep drawing and ask yourself this one question. What is it going to be like when I get to the next step? a few sketches later, you will be drawing at a whole new level. So that's the inspiration and the purpose of my 100 days painting challenge. I think I'd like to build a small habit of painting and drawing with various mediums, indoors or outdoors, depending on the weather. And I want to improve my art skills. So by using those quotes from both David Allen Sibley and John Muir laws, I think this is going to be one of my better practices for drawing and painting. All right, so what actually am I going to use for my setup with this Flunbrato sketchbook? I've got my Flunbrato sketchbook, my watercolor swatch, this white polymer eraser from Pastel, and then this Kuratoga 5.5 uni mechanical pencil. But I thought what I would use, and I'm going to pare this down, I thought I would use my landscape clipboard here. And you can see I've already got my Pitt Pastel pencil case clipped onto it, along with my double water pot clipped on for my watercolors. And that. Then they'll be covered. I can put my watercolor paints from my Etchr mini palette in here, and they'll kind of not slide if I have that on my lap. That little water tube thing can go there. I haven't figured out how I'm going to sketch, secure this sketchbook on here, but I can at least take that and put that on my lap. My watercolor swatch can go there. I can have a place for my eraser or my pencil. I've got this bag of supplies and my paper towels that I could put on there. But my other supplies besides my Pitt Pastel pencils and my watercolors, I thought I could bring my mister bottle, my 3 or 4 different sizes tips of my water brushes. I've got 2 different types here with 3 different tips that these work with. And these are the brushes that you fill up with the water. You just unscrew them and fill them up with water. Screw the cap back on. Now these lids, some of them will go crossways to unscrew, and some of them will go clockwise. So you have to check to see which way your caps will unscrew. But I've got my water brushes to use for my watercolors. I've got my automatic long point comb pencil sharpener that has the 4 different blades, and I've done a review on that. I can add that to it. In here I've also got my bleed proof white, my kneaded eraser if I need it. I'll have that on hand. I'll have a General's sandpaper wedge to sharpen any of my pencils if I need to sharpen anything, or mainly to use on my, if I can find it in here, my blending stump. That's what you use to clean your blending stump, the tip of your blending stump. I've got a 7-inch ruler. I've got my Molotow art masking fluid pump marker that I can use. My Uniball Signo white jelly roll pen. My Mono Zero eraser is another eraser I've got. I've got a Graphic Gear 1000, the 0.5 mechanical pencil. I've got my Multi-8 PH 802 multicolored pencil. Colored pencil. This would be the colored pencil that I would use. I also have a Sketcher Non Photo Blue pencil, a Caran -1 to draw with. And then I have in here some very old Prang charcoal pencils. And some, I'm trying to use up a lot of my cheap old art supplies. So I've got some Crayola black, violet, blue, green, and yellow watercolor pencils to use. And then a set of my General charcoal pencils. I've got the Extra Soft number 6, the Extra Soft 6B, the Soft 4B, the 2B medium, and the 557 hard, HB hard charcoal pencils to use. And then I've got a Crayola white pencil for highlighting. So I think this is the variety of quick, easy art supplies that I'm going to take. I've got some cotton buds. These are apparently dirty, so I'm going to have to put in some new cotton buds for blending my pastels in that. But they'll all fit nicely in this supply bag to be able to carry and sit out on my front porch if I decide to do any painting or sketching outdoors. Or I can use these same materials for indoors, and they just fit inside this bag. I can set this up in here, put all these other pieces in here, put this spray mister back in here, and have all this supplies to where I can sit outside and use it, along with the setup of using my Pitt pastels and my watercolors, which I'm seriously thinking of using this set primarily, but I have these extra things just in case I want to use them. But I think that's going to be my setup for this 100 days painting challenge of birds. Now, remember this bird that I said here at the beginning, that I could think of about 10 different birds this bird could be? As a birder, you learn to tell different types of birds real quick by either their sound they make or by the colors. If this bird was red and black, it'd be a northern cardinal. If it was black and blue, it could be a stellar jay, or if it's solid blue, it could be a regular blue jay. And if it's gray or gray and black, it could be a tufted titmouse, which is just gray. It could be a bridled titmouse, which has gray on just its head, and black on its head. Or it could be a black crested titmouse, which just has the black tip on the head. It also could be a red whiskered bulbul because of the red patch on its cheek area right in here, and the rest of it is a totally other color. It could be a wax wing, a cedar wax wing, or a bohemian wax wing, depending on where the colors of the feathers are, or the head and crest. Or it could even be a gray silky flycatcher. So that's your 10 different birds this could be. So doing a drawing birds challenge, it sounds hard, but really once you get a couple of birds figured out to draw by their body shape and the placement of their eyes and the size of their beak, whether it's short or long, and depending on the wing colors, you could, after just learning how to draw a few different shapes of birds, be able to draw all sorts of different kinds of birds. So that's what I'm hoping this 100 small bird paintings challenge over these next 100 days will give you some inspiration and ideas of how to draw this wonderful subject of birds. I'm hoping this video has been a big help to you, and I hope you do your 100 birds challenge. I will probably put a link somewhere on my Instagram so that you can tag me with your paintings if you follow along with me on this challenge. And if this video has been any help for you, please share this video or click that thumbs up like button. Hit that subscribe button over here in the corner, and also tag that bell notification so that you'll get the upcoming daily shorts that I'm going to be doing on this 100 Days Bird Challenge. And also, if you have some birds in your area that you would like to see me paint during this 100 Birds Challenge, after these first 10 birds, I think these first 10 birds that I showed you this pencil sketch on, the northern cardinal, the stellar jay, the blue jay, the tufted titmouse, the bridled titmouse, the black-crested titmouse, the red-whiskered bulbul, the cedar waxwing, and the Bohemian waxwing, and the gray silky flycatcher. I think those are going to be the first 10 birds that I'm going to try and paint in this 100 days challenge. So keep an eye out for those videos. They're going to be in the shorts. And if you have a suggestion for one of the 100 birds that you'd like to see me paint, go ahead and put those down in the comments below. And I look forward to seeing you guys again next time, boardwalkers. Goodbye for now.